first introduced to the flying public by Eastern Airlines in January, and then by American Airlines a few days later, Lockheed's prop jet Electra has been building an impressive record of service during its first few months of operation, offering time-saving schedules on 3 continents: North America, Australia, and the Far East. American Airlines inaugurated Electra flight on one of this country's busiest routes, between cosmopolitan New York and the renowned metropolis of Chicago. On the first return trip to New York, the Electra covered the 710 miles in 1 hour 41 minutes, chopping an hour and 14 minutes from all former schedules. On the initial export delivery from the factory to Australia, Ansett ANA made flight history, logging the 2,565 miles from Los Angeles to Honolulu in 6 hours, 13 minutes, almost 2 hours better than existing airline schedules. By the end of July, over 70 of these prop jet transports were delivered to a total of 9 different world airlines, extending Electra flight service to many corners of the globe. Burbank, California, birthplace of the Electra. Born as the practical answer to an urgent airline need for a modern short to medium range transport, this flexible turboprop has been proving equally economical on longer range flights. Such versatility is the result of careful analysis and exacting design, guided and augmented by the airlines themselves to produce the right jet-age power and airframe package. A quick trip down the factory line reveals girder-strong assemblies, incorporating Lockheed's fail-safe structural design used throughout Electra construction. This design principle assures complete flying safety, reducing stress levels upon the airframe in such a manner that failure of any single element will not affect the structural integrity of the aircraft. 3,750 horsepower is packed into each one of these Allison prop jet engines. Known as Model 501-D13, they can lift a fully loaded Electra to 15,000 feet in 10 minutes. Characterized by high power-to-weight ratio, small frontal area, and low fuel consumption, this truly efficient power package is expected to accumulate 2 million operational hours by the end of this year. The Electra power and airframe combination bears the same mark of Lockheed quality, which has put more than 30,000 aircraft in the skies over the past 27 years. Early in November 1957, the first Electra emerged from the production line to be readied for her maiden flight. A few weeks later, on December 6th, the big day had arrived, 6 weeks ahead of schedule. Hundreds of Lockheed employees and anxious pilots had waited for this event. This was the beginning of Electra flight. Months of concentrated flying, and she was declared airworthy by the Federal Aviation Agency. August 22nd, 1958, 5 weeks ahead of schedule. Now she was ready to make her debut to the world in one of the most extensive pre-service demonstrations ever conducted. Undertaken in association with General Motors' Allison Division, manufacturer of her turbine engines, the tour spanned United States, Canada, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, establishing a new non-stop record from Istanbul, Turkey to New Delhi, India. 3,220 miles in 7 hours, 55 minutes. 4.5 hours better than the fastest scheduled airline. Though flown under maximum performance conditions, often by unfamiliar crews, few delays and an impressive maintenance record mark this rugged Electra test, covering 8 weeks, 150 hours, 52,000 miles, and demonstrations to over 3,000 guest passengers. Patterned after actual airline operations, the Electra undeniably proved herself to the world. She was ready to become the prop jet workhorse of today's vast network of airlines. As a proud parent guides a bright young child's career, Lockheed continues to develop and improve this modern transport. Early in airline service, noise and vibration had an unusual characteristic, remaining low during takeoff and climb, though maximum power was being used, and becoming an annoyance only at high speeds and relatively low altitudes. Flight tests determined that the angle of air meeting the propeller blades in this particular flight condition caused propeller stresses and pressures against the side of the fuselage, resulting in a relative increase in cabin noise and vibration. Once the principal cause was determined, a remedy was obvious. By tilting the nacelle upward 3 degrees, air would now meet the propeller blades in an optimum manner, so that loads would be more uniform rather than cyclic. Angle of the nacelles was then changed on a production model and thoroughly flight tested. Results were very gratifying. Vibration levels throughout the cabin were reduced considerably. With these refinements, the Electra's constant speed turbine power now produces a smooth, quiet ride, attested to by guest passengers and airline executives who have flown in the modified version. Electras presently in service are being modified to incorporate this design refinement. Within the first few months of airline operation, 90% of all service problems were eliminated. A credit to Lockheed's strategically stationed field service representatives and a vast inventory of spare parts. And how has the Electra been accepted since airline operations began? More than half of American Airlines first-class passengers between New York and Chicago, as well as between New York and Detroit, are specifying Electra flight. En route passengers remaining aboard at intermediate stops, as well as new passengers boarding during hot weather, enjoy the Electra's unique Freon cooling system, independent of any ground equipment. Even moderate temperatures prevail regardless of weather extremes on the ground or in the air. Airport and community noise levels are the lowest of any modern transport in existence, according to extensive tests conducted by the New York Port Authority. The Electra has been proving faster, doorknob to doorknob, than any other plane, because it can use airports close in to large metropolitan areas when a choice of airports is available. Less time is spent in ground travel, coming and going to airports at a considerable distance from the downtown areas. As air traffic volume increases, this Electra advantage will become even more and more significant. Quick turnarounds permit less time on the ground, save countless maintenance hours, and allow better schedule dependability with brisk getaways. On-time departures during the first 3 months averaged a creditable 95% for all airline operators. Eastern Airlines, within this same period, averaged better than 8 hours daily utilization. When all 40 of their Electras are in scheduled service, they expect to increase this to 10 hours daily. Passengers are really impressed when the Electra beats its own flight schedule, a frequent occurrence on the New York to Miami run. Overwhelming public support has proved this Lockheed prop jet the ideal airliner for Australia. Newspaper advertisements boasted this record. Regularly, Ansett ANA bettered the fastest flight schedules on the Melbourne-Sydney route by 35%. During the first 3 weeks of operation, the Electra profit record mounted to $4,000 a day with only one airplane. Utilization exceeded 10 hours a day, and the average load factor exceeded 80%. The traveling public waited for and are now demanding Electra flight. Watch for more records, greater schedule flexibility, and frequency with an increase in flying travelers as Trans-Australia extends Electra service. Followed by Qantas, and then Tasman Empire Airlines later this year. The Federal Aviation Agency approved a 1,000-gallon increase in landing weight fuel limits. An Electra Extra proving extremely valuable in minimizing or eliminating en route refueling on many flights. 4,000 gallons are now permitted aboard on landing. One of the Electra's optional features proving very popular are these integral automatic stairs. No delay, no waiting for ramps, or for luggage with these carry-on racks. Fast getaways upon arrival are routine with Electra flight. When refueling is necessary, the single-point system cuts time for this procedure to minutes. Another operational bonus. The Federal Aviation Agency approved extension of time before engine overhaul to 1,000 hours after adequate samplings had been made at 600 and 800-hour intervals. This extended time between engine overhaul allows over 300,000 miles of continuous operation, with substantial increases expected within the near future. Developed and produced for a long, hard life of profitable service, the Electra has been proving itself a classic airplane within this short span of airline service. Her performance has been confirmed by these notable quotes.
The Electra, with its big load, speed, and capability for using almost any airport, anywhere, is going to be a breadwinner.
It was as spacious and comfortable as any aircraft I've ever ridden in. Air conditioning and heating systems are excellent.
No doubt about it, they're definitely disappointed when they ask for an Electra and it's sold out. And so, many of the world's most discriminating airlines have confidently chosen the Electra, the profit liner in today's fleet of jet transports, rapidly becoming an international favorite in man's new age of mobility. And this is only the beginning of Electra jet service throughout the world.
This is the story of a few weeks in the life of an airplane, of a very particular airplane, one of the planes which is changing the whole idea of air travel and transport, a big, reliable Douglas DC-6. This one is recognized by the public as the mainliner New York, but she's known to her intimates as United 6534. Her story won't really be what you'd call high adventure. 6534 is beautiful to look at, romantic in these modern times, even exciting. But the frontier days of air transport are gone forever. And 6534 is in the useful business of carrying people and their goods from place to distant place swiftly, comfortably, and with year-round dependability. In the past 4 months, 6534 has flown 340,000 miles, carrying 16,000 people and 750 tons of cargo from the Golden Gate to Manhattan, from Boston to Cleveland, from Philadelphia to Portland, to Seattle, to Denver, to Washington. She's been in the air, at work, almost half of the past 3,000 elapsed hours. But 6534 will never grow old. She will always be a new airplane. Her fountain of youth is the company's vast $6 million maintenance base at San Francisco, where 1,900 skilled men and women continually service and improve the airplanes of United's mainliner fleet. Here is a prime source of 6534's dependability. Almost none of the work on this 1,400-hour overhaul is needed now, but the base is dedicated to the principle of preventive maintenance. And so during the next 7 days, 6534 will be overhauled with microscopic thoroughness. 654's logbook was flown in a couple of days ago, most of this work has already been planned and ordered. This great overhaul dock, the only one of its kind in the world, is a remarkable example of modern industrial technology. Automatic controls raise and lower the huge catwalks, which are designed to fit the DC-6 inch by inch and curve by curve. We hear a lot about bigness these days, both pro and con, but only a big business can provide the big league maintenance which the modern airplane must have. Each one of the hundreds of operations is assigned by written order. No operation can be forgotten or overlooked. After 8 of these major overhauls, her every part except the skin will have been replaced. 6534 will not only stay new, she will improve as newly developed equipment is added. The 18-cylinder Wasps are among the biggest piston engines now being made. The carburetor alone is larger than some automobile engines. Taken apart down to the last bolt and pin, each part will go to its appropriate sub-department to be tested, then refinished or replaced. When the small parts have been grouped in baskets to ride the overhead conveyor for the 5-hour trip through the cleaning bank, our 2,100 horsepower stretch out on a line 60 feet long. Out in the dock, 6534 is being permit shorter takeoffs and slower landing speeds. Here, like all of 6534's critical, it's entirely independent of the other. The extraordinary delicacy and precision of a top instrument craftsman can make a watchmaker feel heavy-handed. The gyroscope brain of this automatic pilot spins at 18,000 revolutions per minute, with parts so small that they're adjusted through a microscope. Yet the giant propellers are also so finely balanced that they can be set in motion by the weight of a single paper match. An automatic pitch control mechanism shifts gears from climbing to cruising in flight. Upon landing, the blades can be fully reversed so that they push against the air, stopping the airplane smoothly and swiftly. Visual and micrometer inspections are supplemented by World of Tomorrow devices which uncover any hidden flaws. In orderly ranks, the new and renewed parts are conveyed to the final assembly line. And once again, they begin to assume the form and function of a giant double Wasp engine, seen here in progressive stages of reassembly. Its 18 cylinders, equipped with water injection and jet thrust exhaust, deliver a maximum of 2,400 horsepower. When the pilot guns 4 of these great power plants for takeoff, the 9,600 horses under his hand drive the DC-6 through the atmosphere with more power than is provided by any locomotive now riding the rails. After being run for 5 hours in the test cell, under conditions far more rigorous than anything ever encountered in actual flight, the engines are returned to the dock. And now the overhaul draws to a close. The hundreds of written orders have been worked, checked, and signed off. The final inspectors have swarmed the plane with flashlight and checklist and found everything in order. And on the 5th day, 6534 backs out of the dock feeling like a new airplane, which she is. But there's still another 2 days of careful scrutiny on the ramp by inspectors who check on the inspectors before she's ready for flight testing. During the next 4 hours, the test flight crew will check and recheck the special factors which give 6534 her great dependability. Those reserves of range, altitude, speed, and power. For range, her tanks can swallow the whole 4,200-gallon load of this huge gasoline tank truck, giving her the ability to reach a landing place hundreds of miles beyond any scheduled destination. For altitude, 6534 climbs far above any mountaintop in the entire United States to cruise the smooth upper air, far above ordinary weather disturbances. Her pressurized cabin keeps the inside atmosphere at an easy-breathing 7,500 feet, while the air outside is a thin 19,000. For speed, the four big engines will cruise the DC-6 at better than 300 miles per hour. For power, the DC-6 requires hardly more than half of its horsepower to achieve this fine performance, which means that she can not only fly with three engines, but she can keep on climbing. And she can maintain her altitude comfortably with any two. 6534 ordinarily cruises at only 55% of her rated power, leaving a comfortable reserve which can be used to maintain normal schedules against adverse wind conditions. Six, 5, 3, 4, okay for flight. Take her away. And 6534 goes back on the line, back and forth over United's 13,250 miles of scheduled routes. Clouds are hanging low over the Los Angeles airport this winter morning, and the rain which drizzles off 6534's silver shoulders is only a sample of the weather which lies far to the east. Today, 6534 is scheduled for Flight 608, the Hollywood, eastbound to New York, with one stop at Chicago. The crew checks in an hour and a half before flight time. Posted on the weatherboard, the captain finds a broad assortment of detailed data, including reports of wind conditions at various altitudes and flight logs from pilots who've just flown in over the identical route. The meteorologists get new information minute by minute. Today's ground weather is unfavorable from Denver east, but as usual, the upper air is clear and smooth at the 19,000-foot cruising level. The co-pilot computes his gasoline load to carry the plane beyond Chicago to an alternate airport if need be, plus an ample reserve. Departure time comes closer as the airport limousines bring their passengers from the hotels and terminals. And as the passengers check in for their flights, it becomes obvious that just about everybody travels by air these days. But the captain well remembers that a very few years ago, under similar weather conditions, this flight would not have left the ground.
That's true. Today, lying across the north central plains is a low-pressure area, characterized by rough air and strong winds blowing in a counter-clockwise direction. Not long ago, unfavorable weather along a single basic route might have canceled the flight. But nowadays, we have many available routes, all radio-controlled airways, and we can choose the one where the weather is best. So today, we'll fly our regular course as far as the Grand Canyon and then swing south via Amarillo, Texas, and let those circling winds give us a tailwind boost, which will offset the extra mileage. Tomorrow, the storm center will have moved southward, and we'll fly a northerly course. The next day, we'll be back on our regular route. Pilots call this pressure pattern flying, but it simply means that the longest way round is frequently the quickest way home, also the smoothest and the sunniest.
Well, it's time to be getting down to the airplane. Out on the wet ramp, 6534 is drinking her breakfast. Here, third man of the crew concludes his nose-to-tail check of her equipment. Overhead in the cockpit, the captain and co-pilot begin the checking and cross-checking, which will go on more or less constantly until they land at Chicago. Although every instrument and control and dial is second nature to these men, each is called off and checked whenever the airplane prepares to leave the ground. The ramp agent has collected 49 gate passes. 6534 is traveling pretty full today. The two stewardesses will have plenty to keep them busy. And somehow it never fails that for every Mrs. Bennett embarking on her first flight, there's a Mr. Bennett relishing the chance to show off his vast experience.
Los Angeles ground control from United 608, ready to taxi. IFR to Chicago.
United 608 cleared to runway 25L.
United 608, ready for takeoff.
United 608 cleared for takeoff. Climb westbound on the west leg of the LA low frequency range to on top. Report on top.
Roger, 608.
Clear for takeoff. 4 synchronized throttles, jamming 9,600 horses into action, and a schedule to hit. Sunshine 3 miles up. Chicago, 2,000 miles and 6.5 hours to the east. When 6534 climbs into the cloud cover a few hundred feet above the field, Mrs. Bennett would feel much better if she knew that the plane is riding a radio track more sharply marked than a highway route. But her uncertainty is momentary, because these big airplanes are usually only 15 minutes from sunshine. Aircraft headed east fly at the odd 1,000-foot altitudes, leaving the even levels cleared for planes flying west. So when the captain levels off at 19,000 feet, 6534 is far above any mountaintop in the United States and clear of airplanes flying in the opposite direction. Passing Hoover Dam and Lake Mead, the co-pilot radios his position and gets in return the latest weather and wind data. Anything interesting goes back to the cabins over the PA loudspeakers.
Your attention, please. This is your captain speaking. Through the windows on the left side, you'll soon be looking down into the Grand Canyon of the Colorado. Directly below us, the dark green triangle is the south rim of the canyon. Now you can see the highway to El Tovar Hotel and Bright Angel Lodge. Radio reports indicate that we should continue to have only scattered clouds until we're over the divide, so there'll still be quite a lot to see. Thank you.
But 1,000 miles to the east, the clouds are solid, not scattered. Chicago Dispatch expects to bring 6534 in as scheduled. But the airlines believe in anticipating every possibility. And so the Chicago Dispatcher refers Flight 608 to base dispatch and payload control at Denver. These offices control the movements of every airplane in United's mainliner fleet, as well as the loads they carry 24 hours of every day. So, out over one of the most extensive private telephone and teletype systems in the world, go payload's requests for data on the individual passengers aboard 6534. To Los Angeles reservations. Which passengers want connections at Chicago? To Chicago reservations. Which passengers want connections on United for Washington, Philadelphia, Detroit, Boston? To Milwaukee, Cleveland, and Detroit airports. Can you take care of Flight 608 if we divert it to you from Chicago? Soon, the communications net brings back the data on Flight 608. Every passenger is now known by name, and every individual's problem will enter into the final decision. Payload and dispatch work up their plan for the flight. If Chicago ceiling drops below the 300-foot minimum, they'll set 608 down at Milwaukee for refueling en route to New York. Prearranged transportation will bring her Chicago passengers to downtown Chicago. These alternate routings are planned as a matter of routine procedure. Actually, few of them are used, as evidenced by the fact that United's entire fleet operates almost 100% of its schedules. It's mealtime now, and 6534 is cruising eastward over the Continental Divide. Those 4 thundering engines barely audible through the blankets of fiberglass which soundproof the 2 big cabins. Prairie states now, riding the beam up toward the Great Lakes. Mr. Bennett goes over the speech he's giving tonight, while Mrs. B settles back for an after-dinner nap. Beyond the wheat belt, across the Mississippi, and as 6534 approaches Chicago, the dispatcher radios that the airport is now open.
Your attention, please. The overcast at Chicago has lifted above the minimum ceiling of 300 feet, and we're cleared to go in through the overcast on a routine instrument approach. You may already have seen the instrument landing system illustrated in a booklet in your flight packet. You'll notice that 2 radio beams are projected from the airport runway. The glide path is like an electronic highway, slanting downward at the correct angle to bring us out at the exact end of the runway. The vertical beam, called the localizer, is the white line in the center of that highway. In front of me here in the cockpit is a simple instrument which tells the whole story. The vertical needle warns when the nose strays even a few feet to right or left of the localizer. The horizontal needle does the same thing if we get above or below the glide path. To make the perfect approach, it's only necessary to keep the needles centered. Our mileposts are special radio beacons which cause signal lights to flash in the cockpit as we pass over them and mark our distance to the touchdown point. Although we'll be in the overcast during most of our approach run, our radio aids will tell us exactly where we are at all times. We'll touch down on the Chicago runway in 8 minutes. Thank you.
Every experienced air traveler well remembers when this kind of an overcast would have meant endless circling over the terminal airport, while the overworked tower talked down the stacked airplanes at 15-minute intervals. But this afternoon, planes will touch down in perfect safety, no more than 3 minutes apart, with the casual ease and sureness of clear weather. The same kind of clouds which concerned Mrs. Bennett a few hours ago have lost their significance. Now she understands how the pilots know exactly where they are at all times.
United 608 calling approach control over Aurora at 5500. Over.
Roger. United 608 cleared to ILS outer marker. No delay expected.
5 miles from the field, the captain lines up with ILS. And the pointers settle down to a steady fix. Wings flat to the glide path, nose straight on the localizer. 6534 is angled for the exact end of the runway, as surely as though she were flying down through an invisible tube. The X-ray eye of the precision beam radar sweeps the skies, pinpointing the position of every airplane in the area within a few feet. The radar man monitors all ILS approaches and could talk any of them down if need be. Landing gear down. Now crossing the outer marker.
United 608 over the outer marker at 07.
Roger, United 608. You are now cleared to the Chicago Tower. ILS approach.
United 608 leaving outer marker inbound.
Although outside vision is obscured, the captain can see perfectly with the aid of his precision instruments.
Airspeed 135, 130, 125,
There's the inner marker.
125, 125, 125.
And there's 6534 breaking out of the overcast, lined up for a perfect landing. As the wheels touch down on the snow-covered runway, the pilots pull back the throttles, reversing the pitch of the propeller. The engines keep running forward, but the propeller blades change from pull to push, helping to bring the airplane to a smooth, swift stop. Chicago, after 2,000 miles of sunshine over some of the worst ground here, and on the midway ramp within 5 minutes of schedule. New York-bound passengers will have time to stretch their legs, make a phone call, or send a wire. But despite the nasty weather underfoot, the well-coordinated ground crews will have 6534 refueled and stocked with hot meals, mechanically checked from nose to tail, mail and luggage and cargo handled and stowed, and the airplane and her people back in the air within 30 minutes. With a fresh crew aboard, 6534 is ready for an on-time departure. Chalk up that one to the teamwork of a crack ground crew. Destination, New York. 6534 climbs through the overcast, from snow to sunshine, in 11 minutes by the clock. Mrs. Bennett and her fellow passengers will be in New York on time. Once those words would have been a boast. Now they're just a routine statement of fact. For today and every day, at air travel's peak hour in the late afternoon, more than 500 airliners are aloft at once over the United States, carrying some 600 tons of cargo and 15,000 passengers, swiftly, safely, and dependably, in a thundering tribute to the airlines of America, big and small, whose crisscrossing routes are weaving a bright new tapestry of service to the present and promise to the future. Close up your magazine, freshen your lipstick, stow those papers in your briefcase, straighten your tie. We're approaching the airport.
Flight 608 from Los Angeles via Chicago to New York, arriving at Gate 3.
To close another page in the logbook of United 6534.
McDonnell 220, putting jet power at your command, putting your company in the jet age picture, anywhere, anytime, with airline safety and comfort and private plane convenience. The 220 is proportioned for performance and economy, and its big plane comfort is arranged to make any trip pleasant and productive. Your air-conditioned office goes with you over continents and oceans, swiftly and smoothly, above the weather. 8 miles up, your cabin altitude is that of delightful Mexico City. The custom interior and furnishings of your choice provide perfect surroundings for work and relaxation. There's plenty of big plane headroom and swiveling seats to give freedom of movement. Wide, flat floors with no recessed aisle. Rail-mounted furnishings you can rearrange as you like, even in flight. The entire cabin layout is flexible, easily adapted for varying requirements. This efficient galley provides complete food service. Plenty of luggage space is conveniently located near the entrance, with a handy wardrobe opposite. There are airliner washroom facilities. The comfortable couches convert to beds for overnight travel. Advanced engineering keeps you safe and secure in the 220. The airframe is designed to meet or exceed all strength and service life requirements of civil air regulations and has been completely proof tested. The large glass windshield panels are strong, flat, and distortion-free. The panoramic view from the cockpit provides for safety as well as convenience while taxiing and in flight. The McDonnell 220 is completely equipped for all-weather, day or night flying, with the most modern navigational radios, weather radar, and autopilot. This complete equipment, along with the comfortable roominess of the cockpit, takes the fatigue out of flying. Like all American jet airliners, the 220's 4 engines are isolated from one another, individually mounted in pods below the wing. Experience has shown this to be by far the safest and best arrangement for a jet transport. In the rare event of trouble in an engine, none of the other 3 will be affected, and the pilot can quickly identify the malfunctioning engine and shut it down. The modern turbofan engines on the production model are more compact than these test engines on the prototype and are relatively higher from the ground than the engines on any of the new American turbofan airliners. This guards against drawing in loose objects from the ground. As an additional protection against damage from ground debris, the 220 has a blow-away jet to break up the vortex, which can sometimes toss up loose objects from the ground into the intake airstream. The 220's engines are handy for maintenance. All servicing points are convenient and no special equipment is needed. Everything necessary for 220 operation is available at commercial airports or is self-contained, including ground power units, ground air conditioning, and boarding ladder. The 220 is fueled by lower-cost kerosene-like fuel, either by single-point pressure or gravity filling. The 220's 570-mile-an-hour maximum cruise speed and intercontinental range give management a mobility never before possible. St. Louis, for instance, is only 2¼ hours from New York. At a long-range cruise speed of 510 miles an hour, the cities of Europe are only a few hours from your home airport. Business contacts in England are quickly reached. The Far East, too, is accessible via Honolulu or Alaska. The 220 is just as suited for short hops as it is for long-range flights. It's a rugged airplane, structurally strong enough to land with a heavy load of fuel. This means that if you're planning a flight with some nearby stops en route, you can leave with fuel for the whole flight, make the stops, and lose no time refueling. And whatever your destination, the 220 will get you there in a hurry. At jet speeds, even headwinds are no problem. On a 1,000-mile flight, your estimated time of arrival will be delayed only 10 or 12 minutes by an unexpected 50-mile-an-hour headwind. So if you are one of today's executives who travels 50,000 miles a year in a business plane, the 220 is for you. It can save you 100 to 200 hours a year, up to 25 working days over propeller aircraft. The 220 is an important business tool, a vital part of your participation in today's expanding economy. The 220 is the plane that matches the faster tempo of the modern business world. In every respect, utility, speed, range, comfort, and safety, the McDonnell 220 offers the ultimate in modern corporate travel. With it, you do more than keep pace with the business world. You stay far ahead.